Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Impact Stage. If you've been with me today, welcome to the Impact Stage. If this is the first session you're checking out on our platform today, I am so excited. We've had such a fantastic slew of sessions. I hope you've been able to dig into some today, dig into some yesterday. But where we're about to head is a fantastic session with Jean Westrick from the Technology Association of Grantmakers. I'll do a little intro in a second, but Jean is going to be covering the technology and the future of philanthropy. So we're looking beyond just the AI tooling to think about what the role of AI is going to be in the future of philanthropy. And that, I think, is a really important perspective for all of us to have. I see some applause in the reactions. Love that. Keep that up. We love to see it. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jean. She's the executive director of the Technology Association of Grantmakers, TAG. It's a nonprofit organization that cultivates such strategic, equitable, and innovative use of technology in philanthropy. Jean brings 2 decades of experience in community building, technology leadership, and program strategy. She was previously at the Chicago Community Trust, where she led change management efforts for the foundation's $6 million digital transformation initiative. And Jean directed On the Table, an award-winning civic engagement initiative replicated in 30 cities nationwide. Jean is a longtime advocate for tech equity and access and holds a BA from Michigan State University and an MS from DePaul University. So goes without saying, we are thrilled to have Jean with us today, and I will let her kick things off. Oh, you might have to continue hearing from me for a second. If you don't know, Jean has been a long time voice and advocate for responsible adoption in our sector. We're so grateful to have her here. I think the conversation about AI that we have in fundraising can often feel really just about fundraisers and less about the ecosystem in which we're all operating. And one of the things I'm really excited about with this year's summit is that we've been able to expand, I think, that perspective a little bit. You might have seen some sessions yesterday on donor perceptions of AI, on making the case to grant makers about AI investment. Today, we had a session on this stage about making the case to board members and leadership. So there's a lot of different components that go into what fundraisers are dealing with and seeing on an everyday basis, and the future of philanthropy, how grant makers are approaching AI, how grant makers are thinking about AI is going to be a huge component of that. So incredibly grateful for Jean to join us today. I see some folks in the chat listing where they're from, would love to hear where everyone's coming from today. I am based in beautiful Portland, Oregon. You may know Portland as an extremely rainy place. And today we are having some beautiful sun. So very full of energy over here, very excited to be here with all of you today. I'm just really, really lucky to be here, and we'll have Jean come up in just a minute. Oh, I see some great places here. We have Tim Lockey here from Bozeman, Montana. So that is always another beautiful place in the country for us to check out. Oh my gosh, Colorado Springs. I see someone from Minnesota. I am a Minnesotan, just a Western suburb gal. So I love seeing Midwesterners in the mix. Yes, and Tim, you get a shout out. I think you shout really loudly in the chat. I kid. But it would be remiss of me not to call you out in some form or another. Oh, I see Winnipeg. I see Tennessee, Irvine, California. Gosh, some beautiful places, folks. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Oh, Maui, Hawaii. Well, that's an easy one. That's gorgeous. I hope everyone is getting a chance to enjoy everything that's going on. And here we are. We're going to kick things off with Jean. Thanks so much for being here.
Hello, I'm so happy to be joining you today from Chicago, where we're getting a little Indian summer, and hopefully it's beautiful where you are. Um, Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with a full house with over 200 people who have joined us today. And I wanted to have a little different conversation with folks today, really zooming out about technology and the future of philanthropy. As you heard, I am a 2-year expert or 2-year tenure in the philanthropy space. And I've seen a lot of developments that have been impacted through technology, but also through policy and other social evolutions. And so we're going to have a little futurism conversation today. So for folks who don't know, this is really an interdisciplinary approach to exploring the social, technical, and environmental trends to really protect the future and to help guide our strategic decision making. I am Jean Westrick. I am the executive director for TAG, and I am I joined TAG just under 2 years ago from the Chicago Community Trust, one of the largest community foundations in the country. While at the trust, I worked in a variety of roles, from change management efforts for a $6 million digital transformation effort. I led the project to bring the Northern Trust Charitable Giving DAF program in-house. And I also directed a project called On the Table, which was an award-winning engagement model that was replicated in over 30 cities nationwide. Um, and so I'm so pleased to bring some of that knowledge here to you today. For those of you who don't know about TAG, TAG is a membership association that promotes the strategic, innovative, and equitable uses of technology and philanthropy. And we have members across the globe in 8 countries. Over 400 members join together in this network to really connect with one another, to share and learn together, and to really define how we want to leverage technology in a way that's responsible and aligns to our values. And so that's a little bit about me and a little bit about TAG. So with that, I'd love to get into two questions that I want to dig into today with you. I first want to explore with you where the wealth for philanthropy will come. We're seeing enormous amounts of wealth being generated in recent years, and we want to understand the implications for philanthropy. And number two, how will philanthropy execute in the future, and what role will emerging technologies play? And so we're going to do a little future thinking about this. Before we look to the future, I always like to start with a little look backwards. Um, so first, I'm gonna give away my age. This is the year that I went off to college, 1995, which was also the year of the internet. In 1995, I went off to Michigan State, where I was assigned to the computer lab, where I was giving students their very first email address. I had no idea that email would rule my life as it does now. I certainly thought it was quaint and interesting and a great way to connect with my colleagues, my friends in other colleges and such. Um, and I also want to point out that 1995 is the year that Amazon, Craigslist, eBay all go live. And in 1995, Amazon is an online bookstore. It isn't the behemoth that it is today. So as we look to the future, 30 years ago is not a long time. And yet so much has evolved in the ways in which we interact with one another, as well as the ways in which new businesses and new opportunities have emerged. When we look at philanthropy's evolution, and I would say modern philanthropy is only about 50 years old. What I want to just orientate you before I dig into what's on this slide, because I realize there's a lot of data on here. What is in the sort of teal color is really evolutions in philanthropy itself, largely due to different policy changes that have emerged. The things that are in white would be technical advancements in how they intersect with philanthropy. And then in yellow, you'll see some big sort of movements in the philanthropy space. So with regards to foundations. So what's interesting is you see here, as everyone in this room I'm sure is aware, the 1969 Tax Reform Act really leads to a real growth in private philanthropy. Making it, it was a significant overhaul of the federal tax code and really opened the doors for modern philanthropy. It is also in the 1980s that we start to see foundations really um, professionalizing their grant management approach and starting to use CRMs or customer relationship management tools to manage their grant making. It's in the 1990s that the first GMS systems get introduced. Also in the 1990s, as you see here, the asset management entities like Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, they create nonprofit DAF arms. And that really becomes the beginning of the DAF movement. The National Philanthropic Trust is established in 1996, just shy of 30 years ago, which is one of the largest DAF holders in the world. It's interesting, as we know that Bill and Melinda Gates is planned its spend down by 2040. They've only actually been around since 2000, and have been enormously impactful in this space. The Silicon Valley Community Foundation, which is the largest community foundation by assets, is less than 20 years old. During these early aughts, we start to see Facebook and Twitter really transforming public engagement. We see the emergence of crowdfunding and microlending, and we also see the introduction of Bitcoin. And so as we start to see what's emerging with the digitization of philanthropy, the online giving platforms, analytics and the ways in which data is impacting grant making, and then thinking about blockchain and how that has enabled contracting, decentralized giving, and other types of things with regards to reducing fraud and such. As we look to our last decade, it's largely shaped by a couple big things. Certainly, the sustainability goals in the UN really sort of driving this, some alliance around certain data goals, as well as the role of COVID and how that really changed the workplace forever, really making sure that folks are able to do their work anywhere. Technology becomes super important with that. Gen AI emerges in late 2022 and really has captured the imagination of the public, largely because of its public launch and its public market strategy. So as you could see, there are all of these sorts of forces at play that are shaping the landscape of philanthropy. Policy changes, changes in the tax code, changes in technology, as well as some cultural shifts. So where will the wealth come from? Before we dig in that, just in your mind, please imagine when you think of a philanthropist, who comes to mind? And I'll just take a second to think about that, and I'll pull up the next slide here to really dig into this conversation here. So if you're like me, you probably thought of our Andrew Carnegie, Gospel of Wealth, and the role that Carnegie fortune has played in shaping our public sector around libraries and schools and such. Or maybe you've thought about Rockefeller or the Ford Foundation, which is still a huge foundation. If you look at these traditional philanthropists, these individuals who were of the Gilded era, with a few folks here on the end who are more recent billionaires, the amount of assets that are under management for these organizations is ranges from about 4 billion, we'll say, actually 2.3 billion for Warren Buffett, upwards of 75 for Bill Gates, as far as the foundations with their assets under management. This is as of the end of 2023. And so when we think about that, let's just compare them to some of the tech billionaires and the fortunes that have emerged in recent years. If you think about somebody like Elon Musk, who's got over $300 billion in his net worth, to Mackenzie Scott, who's got about 30 billion net worth. Um, what is interesting about all of this, I mean, certainly the numbers are staggering, but what's interesting is that none of these individuals are opening up a traditional private foundation. Most of their giving is being done through other means other than private foundations, meaning that they are using DAFs or LLCs or other arrangements to execute their philanthropy. That is interesting because one, it certainly reduces transparency into where those dollars are going and how much of those dollars are being spent because of the different roles and rules around DAFs versus private foundations. And it also, the interest of these individuals is really going to drive the types of issues and the types of things that get funded in a way that's different than if an organization is a community-based foundation, which is responsive to community, or a private foundation, which has a board, which helps to drive strategy and lead that work. So definitely the role of the individual becomes much more prominent and transparency is reduced. Donor advised funds now take a fifth of all individual giving in the US, and they're overtaking foundations as the charity for the wealthy. That this is now the way in which a lot of that wealth is being disseminated is through donor advised funds. What is so interesting is if you look at the assets held in US DAFs, they've grown by 300, almost 400% over the last 10 years. And as you see here, this is doubled from 2019 to 2023, doubled in amount of giving and grants made by those donor advised funds. And you start to see that it is really, when compared to private foundations, it's growing in prominence and impact considerably. All this comes at the time when we are facing the biggest wealth transfer in history. So folks have talked about the great wealth transfer. And just to put this into perspective, there is an estimated 84 trillion, which will be transferred from boomers to their younger generations over the next 20 years. We're at the beginning of that. And when you compare this to US GDP, this is sizable. The US GDP in 2024 was about 29 trillion. So this is more than 3 times that. It is a sizable amount. And so those next generations are really going to have a different perspective than their grandfather will on how they want to give, what kind of causes, and what is their approach to giving. In addition, I want to talk about AI generated wealth. Earlier this year, McKinsey estimated that AI software services will generate somewhere in the 15 to 22 trillion annually over the next 15 years. This is huge, and this comes from new businesses that will start because there'll be AI first investments. This will start with new software, new services, new jobs, job savings, like savings from jobs that are impacted from this. And again, this is going to rival 22 trillion compared to 29 trillion for US GDP. So it's big. So in summary, as we just sort of zoom back out, tech billionaires, venture philanthropy, and the rise of social entrepreneurship and those donor advised funds are really going to shape the landscape. We're also going to see an influx of that generational wealth transfer and the ways in which those younger generations are going to be shaping philanthropy through their own values and their own interests. Um, and then, of course, the implications of the AI economic models and their potential to generate and redistribute enormous amounts of wealth. So now let's get to some fun stuff. How will philanthropy be executed in the future? So I wanted to scope and sort of see some trends that you may or may not be aware of. First, the metaverse. So this is, think about this as creating these immersive storytelling opportunities, these communities and such that you could create and connect across geography. So this could be AI generated videos, experiences, all sorts of things. As we think about fundraising, galas are really expensive to pull off, and they also require you to have the time, the space, and the audience in order to make them successful. Um, Recently, a nonprofit named Pencils of Promise raised 1.9 million with their gala by introducing a virtual reality component to really create an experience that connected their donors with the change they could affect. And they work in Ghana. And so this was an opportunity for them to really connect with their donors in a really meaningful way and raise dollars accordingly. So this might be something that we see more of is these immersive experiences, especially when we're talking about raising dollars for populations that it might be hard for donors to ever visit or see that action in action. DAO. These are decentralized autonomous organizations that use open source frameworks and a decentralized governance model. They're really sort of an outgrowth of blockchain technology and allow the opportunity for these communities to emerge and form organizational structures without sort of a central authority. Um, Big Green DAO is was actually started by Kimball Musk, yes, related to the Elon Musk. It's a nonprofit that led to this decentralized organization that works to create food literacy and learning gardens for students. And then Ukraine DAO was actually started with the group Pussy Riot, and they raised something in the region of $6 million in crypto in order to be able to fund efforts in the Ukraine. And then, of course, AI. Uh, that is certainly going to play a role in our space. I will say that AI can help increase our efficiency and service delivery and problem solving. We are really at the earliest stage of AI in philanthropy. Right now, most of the AI that is being adopted on the individual use. So it's individuals who are using those tools to create efficiencies. There are very few organizations that are using it enterprise wide, but I think this will continue to grow. Um, there's also an opportunity for those organizations to step up and govern that because the growth has really happened amongst individuals. There are lots of organizations that still need to catch up with their AI policies and such. When we look at the types of uses that grant makers are using, they're really not using AI for particularly sophisticated use cases yet. They're pretty basic. And so using AI for meeting notes and transcriptions and drafting correspondence and the like. I will say that there is a small percentage, 2%, that report that they are using AI for those grant making decisions. Um, some of the reasons why these things are not taking off as quickly as possible is because of the barriers, and the barriers really have to do with data. We have some issues with not only our data governance and our keeping our data houses in order, but there are concerns about data privacy and security, um, as well as organizations struggling to really understand how to apply AI to their work. Um, so How will AI be executed in the future? I think that we're going to be watching to see how the metaverse might impact. What could be the role of virtual events, immersive experiences, virtual conferences like we're at today, and ways in which we might engage donors in that space. I think decentralized philanthropy is a really interesting way. We've seen the rise of crowdfunding. We've seen also the role that crypto may play in generating resources and connecting those to opportunities in need. And then finally, really thinking about AI and the role that it may play in really identifying opportunities for proactive giving and automating some of the grant making life cycle and the engagement activities. So I think that there's a lot to look forward to. I would like to actually just pause and just ask the audience, what implications do these trends or other trends you think will have on your work? Unfortunately, I can't see the chat, but I'd love to be able to open up the dialogue around that because I do think that we're at this really interesting space where technology is moving really quickly. And how we do it will really be important as we think about our own strategies. And I think with that,
Amazing.
I would like to take questions or I'd like to open it up to the audience.
We've seen a couple pop up. We are right at time, Jean, so I just want to pick one that I think will speak to the future predictions that you mentioned. Is there strong interest in traditional foundations using DAOs and smart contracts, or is that still future looking?
I think that's still future looking. I
Mm,
think that, our we haven't always invested in our own technology,
mm,
at the foundation space.
mhm.
There are lots of organizations that still are using legacy tech, but I think what these opportunities do is they open a possibility to sort of leapfrog and advance our technology in so many different ways.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of leapfrogging and advancement and exponential growth and changes. So thank you for helping us understand some of the trends that are happening, what's coming. We really appreciate your input, Jean, and your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, it's that time again. We'd love to hear from you about your thoughts on the session. Share what you learned, share what you loved, share your love for Jean. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll pass on all your feedback to our speakers. I'm really excited to jump into what some of our next sessions are going to look like. So, on the Amplify stage, Dave Raley is going to be talking about sustainable giving. On the innovation stage, Woodrow from Giving Tuesday and Nabia from Mozilla are talking about trustworthy AI and Mozilla's vision for a safer digital future. And on here on the impact stage, we're going to be covering a really important topic, staying ahead of AI regulation. And we're going to cover with Shannon and Ann what you need to know and what's coming next. So we'll see you right back here in a minute.